It needs to digest fast and it needs to send the proper signals to put you into a fasted state faster. Those are the cardinal rules for the last meal before you go into your intermittent fasting regimen. I wanted to play mad scientist and compile the things that I know into one meal that you could eat prior to your fast, which would be, I don't know, the perfect meal, right? Now, that being said, there's a lot of different ways that you could do this, but I'm just going to relay some cool science. Okay, I'm a big fan of the Mediterranean diet, right? So the first thing that I usually recommend anyway with your last meal before going into a fast is that you make it ketogenic, right? Even if you're not following a keto diet, if you make it a ketogenic meal, a higher fat, lower carbohydrate meal, you're going to be able to burn through that glycogen, those carbohydrates faster so that you can get to the ultimate goal of being in a fasted state as far as gene expression, as far as signaling, as far as fat mobilization goes anyway, okay? But there's some cool science that shows that a Mediterranean style fish-based meal could be just about the perfect thing. I know what you're thinking, you might not like fish. Okay, I'll have some solutions for you. But the reason we want fish in there is mainly because of the omega-3s, but also because it digests so quick that it gets through your system and it allows the signaling processes to start so your body recognizes you as being in a fasted state a little bit faster. But it's the spices, the fats, and the veggies that actually trigger something really interesting. So I start with a study that was published in the journal Lipids. Now, this all comes back to what is called PPAR. Making it simple, but PPAR is the genetic master switch that needs to be activated for us to get the benefits of a fast. If PPAR is not activated, we're really not getting the benefits of a fast. So it turns out in this journal Lipids study that Mediterranean herbs, sage, oregano, thyme, rosemary, all activate PPAR, which means they're tremendous herbs to use no matter what. But they're very, very good to use prior to going into a fast because they are going to activate PPAR much faster. To give you context, normally you have to be probably 10 or 12 hours into a fast before PPAR really gets flipped on, activated. But if you eat these herbs and you have them mixed with the right things, which we'll talk about in a minute, there is a strong, strong argument, and in my at least anecdotal experience, as well as what's backed up with these research papers, that you're going to be able to get yourself into a fasted state faster, okay? Now, what do you combine them with? Well, you would typically combine them with something that has high amounts of omega-3s, okay? So omega-3s are also a potent activator of PPAR. So it's not just these ligands that are coming in herbal form and stuff like that, it's omega-3s too. So where do you get the best, most abundant profile of omega-3s? Usually with some kind of fatty fish. Now, if you're really weird and you want to go down a crazy rabbit hole like I would go down, yeah, I might eat some sardines, I might eat some anchovies, I might eat some stuff like that. But I know you're human and you may not want to sit down with your beautiful family and eat a stinky can of anchovies while everyone else is, I don't know, indulging in some great stuff. So some good old sockeye salmon could be perfect, okay? Also, other fatty cuts of fish could be perfect. You can have high omega-3 land animal, like you can have beef, you could have things like that. The issue there is, even though they're high in omega-3s, the ratio is nice, but the overall quantity in land-based omega-3 is usually a little bit less. So I would highly recommend you have something like sockeye salmon with these herbs on it, and then I'll get into the oils in a little bit too. If you do want to check out ButcherBox down below, they also have fish. So if you're looking for grass-fed, grass-finished meat that is going to be higher in omega-3s, they are going to be probably one of your best bets, especially if you use the link down below because they're the ones that I typically recommend. But they also have sockeye salmon, they have scallops, they have some of these marine-based foods that I'm talking about, the seafoods that are really good for this. So there's a special link down below. They deliver it right to your doorstep, super easy. I don't want to make this a super long pitch. I mean, yes, they do support this channel, but I just want to give you honest context that they're super easy, make it so you don't have to go to the grocery store, and it aligns perfectly with what I'm saying. So highly, highly recommend you check ButcherBox out down below in the description. If you had to lean into one specific herb the most, I would probably lean into rosemary. So if you were to concentrate rosemary, get some either rosemary extract or actually use the actual herb itself and marinate, you can get some of what is called not only hispidulene, which is the main compound that activates PPAR alpha, but you're also getting something called rosmarinic acid, which also activates the same PPAR alpha. So if I wanted to get really nerdy with you, I could tell you that it's kind of working on PPAR alpha along two different mechanisms, two different ways. But you don't really care about that, okay? So let's kind of move on. Now what you'd want to be cooking it in, or you'd want to at least add to it, is a tiny drizzle of either extra virgin olive oil or avocado oil. I'm more inclined to lean towards extra virgin olive oil, and the reason is because of something called oleoethanolamine. What does that mean? Well, there's a kind of fat that's in olive oil called oleic acid, and what this oleic acid does is it turns on the mechanisms that allow you to utilize your body fat better. Okay, it has to do with white fat and brown fat. It has to do with uncoupling proteins, where your body can actually uncouple certain aspects of the fat and allow you to use it as heat. So you're basically getting yourself into a fasted state a little bit faster. But let's keep on diving in, because there's more to what I would want you to consume. Okay, I do recommend, although I did say a couple years back that I was not a big fan of having veggies right before starting a fast, but now when you start looking at the research with short chain fatty acids, I'm actually inclined to think that you want to have a small, kind of modest amount. You don't want to have a ton. Okay, here's why. If you have a bunch of veggies, you're going to slow down digestion. Okay, and that's going to potentially make it so food is in your intestinal tract longer, which means that you're going to get into a fasted state later. And that was kind of my argument a few years ago. Now, I don't think that it's going to hurt you to have a lot of veggies too much, but if you have a small amount, maybe quantified as like, I don't know, half a cup to 3/4 of a cup of good, deep leafy greens that are high in fiber, maybe some broccoli, things like that. Well, then you have just enough fiber to elicit a short chain fatty acid effect, okay? So what that means is when those kinds of fibers break down, they produce these short chain fatty acids, which can act as signaling devices to the brain. Okay, the short chain fatty acids that fiber breaks down into signals the brain to utilize fats better. They actually operate as signaling devices and communicate with your brain, much like ketones do. So in essence, you could get yourself into ketosis faster. So this meal doesn't just apply for getting into a fast, but it also applies for, hey, what do I eat to get into ketosis as fast as possible? These kinds of foods can help activate this whole process. Now, alongside this meal, I would typically have a little bit of apple cider vinegar with a little bit of water, possibly a little bit of cayenne, kind of mix it together, and it's a perfect little drink. And if you wanted to make it sweet, add some stevia, monk fruit, add a squirt of lemon, and make a lemonade out of it. That way you're having a Mediterranean fish with Mediterranean herbs, Mediterranean veggies with Mediterranean oils, alongside an apple cider vinegar lemonade that works really, really well to sip on and get you into that fasted state a little bit faster. I can dive into more detail, but I wanted to make this simple, okay? Fish, herbs, veggies, avocado oil, or olive oil. You're off to the races. I'll see you tomorrow.